Morning, everyone. Welcome to Zen Minded Men. I'm your host, Sensei Gulley.
I'm your host also, Sensei Vince Ellis. And this week we are exploring the aspect of integrity. Sensei Gulley proposed this earlier this week. I thought it was great. Brought to mind something that I do in my dojo is looking at the 7 virtues of Bushido. If you're not familiar with Bushido, Bushi is warrior, Do is path. So in Japanese martial arts anyway, the path of the warrior. So they identify 7 unique virtues of a complete warrior. One of those is integrity. We have also, along with that, respect, courage, honor, compassion, honesty, and loyalty. And through your training, physical training, mental training, emotional training, these aspects make up the complete Bushi, the complete warrior. And although we think of martial arts in its physical aspects, punching, kicking, self-defense, sports competition, whatever it may be, if you allow it to become, as we've said in previous episodes, that framework that holds your life up, that thread that goes through the complete tapestry of what you do, you cultivate these aspects into everything. And integrity is the chosen topic of the day. And honestly, something, again, that we have lost sight of, I believe, in the vast majority of our society today.
And it shows with so many things we see. It shows in, like, our media, for instance. It shows in our television shows, who takes responsibility for the type of programs that are put on for our children, in our music, who takes responsibility for the messages and the cussing and the explicit sexual content, explicit glorification of violence. Where's the integrity of the industry? Where's the integrity of society now? And I want to give a thanks out to my good friend and coworker, Rich Bolton, who I work with. And it was he that we were talking about it, and he brought out how the world lacks a lot of integrity. And we often have discussions about this because he's a father like me. He's got 2 beautiful daughters, a beautiful wife. And one of the things that people, when you hear the word Bushido and you think of samurai, I mean, they automatically conjure up images of the great samurai warrior and someone who's stoic and he's going through the land and cutting down his enemies. But people don't realize that the samurai, they were the most controlled. They strived for that, for, like you say, the 7 aspects of Bushido. It was a code for life. It was how you should live your life. You got to have respect, you got to be loyal, you got to have integrity in everything you do. And integrity, if you look up the base definition of integrity, it's the showing of respect and duty. It's the showing of loyalty. It's having a sense of accountability for yourself. And one of the things at the dojo, you got to have integrity when you walk on that mat, because you got to show respect. You got to carry yourself in a respectful manner, and you got to be respectful to your students, your fellow karateka. Someone's going to be better than you. You're going to be better than someone, but you're all there to learn together. And if you go into it with a sense of, well, I'm going to get myself this, I'm going to get myself that, you're losing sight of what the martial art is trying to teach you, okay? Now, granted, we all know the true history is when the Okinawans created it, it was a system of defense. That was the end goal. Tode was the end goal. When the Japanese discovered it and they wanted to modernize it, spiritualize it, serialize, whatever you want to call it, they added the honor and the self-improvement. And I personally think that it benefited because not only do we have a system for fighting and defending yourself, you've got a system that can actually teach you how to carry yourself through life, how to conduct yourself every day, how to have that respect for your elders, respect for your children, respect for your environment. And if you have integrity, you can acknowledge these things. I know that I'm a father. Sensei Ellis is a father. We know that we go to work to support our families. Okay. We have to do these things. We may not want to. And there's a lot of days on the job where I'm like, please let me go. But I'm not going to shirk those responsibilities because I have integrity. I want to be a better person. I want to be a responsible person. At the end of the day, that's all you really want, and that's what you should be striving for. But you don't see that in society. I'm watching this show. What is it called? The Lovecraft Country, and I was really excited about it. It's a supernatural series, and it's predominantly a Black cast with prominent Black actors, and I was so excited for it because I support all races in their endeavors, but the minority races, Blacks, Asians, Latinos, we weren't represented in film and as we should be, and now that it's starting to change, so that's wonderful. But the show, while the storyline was good, it's so much explicit sexuality that I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Now you're putting this out here and you're going to draw the crowd. Where's your responsibility to say, hey, we can have a little romance, but maybe let's have a little integrity with this. Let's have a little respect for the common folk. Where's, even like we said, accountability. Why does everything have to be so out there all the time? Music industry, same thing. Why do all the rap lyrics, why do we have to allow them to say everything? Okay. Our politicians, 1 minute from the other, they're doing this, they're doing that. They're lying about this, they're lying about that. The presidential debate, neither one of the candidate or our president, they showed there was a lack of integrity there. It was a shouting match between two boys. And this you're representing our country. So I guess if we could get a way to instill a little bit of Bushido in everyone, then I think everyone will hold themselves to a higher standard and realize, I want to walk with integrity. I want to walk with my head up. I want to walk with my shoulders back. I want to be a person that you look up and say, hey, good guy right there.
Yeah. It's interesting because when you initially proposed the subject of integrity, of course that got my mind rolling, and it is a term that honestly we don't use. You will have very few conversations with your circle of influence where the word integrity comes up. So I, like you obviously did, I went to a definition. I wanted to find a definition of what integrity is literally, the definition. So, Google's your friend. So I Google integrity and I got a great definition. And the one that I looked at was the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness, which aligns itself with, what I teach in the dojo. And I think the intent of the word integrity as we're exploring it today.
Right.
It also mentions the fact that it's a state of being whole and undivided.
Yes.
Which again, as an engineer, in my work, we talk about things, process having integrity or a certain material. You might talk about a building or some structure being structurally having structural integrity. So you hope that your automobile has structural integrity so that when you're in an accident, you're safe.
Yes.
Right? You want it to do what it's supposed to do. And there's a spirit of continuation, right? Continuity with integrity. It's having that moral code and that direction that is unwavering.
Yeah.
And again, when you brought this up, it's interesting that you also think about film because, again, I think when I started thinking about, how we were going to do this, and who represented integrity to me that is recognizable outside of the martial arts, I'm old school, I'm old school. So John Wayne, I am a John Wayne fan. So if anybody's never watched a John Wayne movie and you want to see what it's like for a person to operate with integrity, I think generally the characters that he chose had a lot of integrity. There's a very famous scene in his last film. The film was called The Shootist, and he had already been diagnosed with cancer when he made that movie. So he was a dying man. And it was a film about a dying man. who was diagnosed with cancer. And of course, he was a gunfighter in that movie. He was a shootist, and a young character asked him, how did you, why was it you, how did you come to kill so many men? What prompted that? Which, we're talking about murderous activity per se, but he said, I chose to live my life in basically the wilds of the West. And he said, I set a code of laws to live by. And he said, I won't be wronged. I won't be lied to. I won't be insulted. He said, I may have misquoted that. I won't be wronged. I won't be insulted, and I won't be laid a hand on.
Right.
He said, I don't do that to other people, and I won't have it done to me.
You accept the same type of treatment.
Right. And that integrity is, two-sided. You set a set of rules, and you abide by them unwaveringly. It's unwaveringly.
Exactly.
That honesty is obviously one of the pillars of integrity.
It's funny you mentioned John Wayne, because I'm a huge fan of his movies as well. However, I looked up the research to the man, and there is a lot of instances. I mean, let's just be honest, he was a racist. He didn't like people who were not like him.
Yeah,
to me, it's a curious dichotomy.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, when I was younger, before I knew this, he was always that ideal character. Okay, it's like, yeah, that guy. Then when I discuss it, well, the real man is a little different. But again, it's the sign of the times. Yeah. So I have to try to balance that out. So for me, like I say, it's always a curious dichotomy. On the one hand, love the movies, love the characters. On the other hand, I wish you could have brought some of your character's integrity and what's the word, tolerance to your own views. So it's a like I say, it's a hard road. We're not going to turn this into a race debate, but the characters he played on the big screen. One of the movies, it's my favorite Western, and The Sons of Katie Elder.
Oh yeah, I love it.
And I love it how when he comes, he's a gunfighter, and he's got the 4 brothers. He leaves. His mom dies. When he comes back, his reputation is so out there that at his mom's funeral, he stands in the mountains and watches it, because he doesn't want to disrupt his mother's memory. He doesn't want to disrupt that ceremony, because he knows his reputation is infamous. So it's like he respects the integrity of the grief. He respects the integrity of the family coming together. And when he comes in, the sheriff says, well, I see you didn't make it. And he says, oh, I was there. But the last thing mom would have wanted was trouble.
Yeah.
I like that integrity. A person, in our everyday lives, you want to, like you said, you want to keep the thing together. You want to be solid. You want to be whole. Going back to the dojo, we always wanted a unified dojo. We had our disagreements. People didn't always get along. People won't always get along. But the one thing that you had to understand is you were all there for the same reason. So you wanted to respect the integrity of the dojo. You wanted to leave your ego at the door. You wanted to leave your problems at the door. Now, when you come in, a lot of times you find that you start working with your fellow martial artists, and you guys get to talking, interacting, and you help one another. But if you start by respecting the integrity of the dojo, or as they say, the sanctity of the dojo, that this is a place of peace, and this is a place of togetherness, this is a place of learning. If you respect that integral core, you will find a place that does what you need it to do. Same thing with everyday life. If you respect the integrity of your family, family's going to argue. They're going to fuss. They're going to, one thing we always tell our sons, especially my wife, she's got 2 siblings. I'm an only child. So she says, I don't care what you guys are fighting about here. When you're out in the streets, or when you're in public, you are brothers, and you stand up for one another. That is how you keep your family. You respect the integrity of our family. And I don't
that
really
goes
know,
back to that structural wholeness, right?
Yeah.
Like we were talking about. You want it to be regardless of what what you two think of each other. Yeah, we can fight, but nobody else is going to come against us.
Yes, right. Yeah. I can call you a bonehead, but that dude in the street, you better not call Vince a bonehead. You just called him one. I don't care. I can do that.
Yeah,
he's family. He's family. You're not.
That's it. That's
So
it.
it's like, it's like you said with engineering, because we're on both ends of the spectrum. You're an engineer, designer, you understand it. I built the vehicles. There's thousands and thousands of parts and ideas and processes that goes into every vehicle made, no matter who's the manufacturer. If you don't respect the integrity of that process, the integrity, how they say, the integrity of the circuits, if everything doesn't come together and work right, that car doesn't roll.
No,
And
it
a society as a
jeopardizes
whole,
the integrity of the
yes,
whole. Everybody plays a part.
everybody.
Everybody plays a part.
And that's what's happening with society. I think our leaders, they're not respecting the integrity of the nation. It's like a us versus them mentality now. Republicans versus Democrats. This race versus that race. Conservatives versus left versus the right. Well, it's all part of the same. We're all part of the same. Why can't you bring it together and each person extols their ideas and then try to find a workable solution? Respect the integrity of our country. Respect the wholeness of our society. It's not this little part, that little part. No, everything is all a part. The wealthy, the less wealthy, the poor, the indigent, we're all the same. If everyone can respect the integrity of the whole, then you realize, oh, wait a minute, okay, I'm a millionaire, but I've got enough money for 10 lifetimes. This family is not eating. Okay, I can swing around and help out here. If you're poor, you're down on your luck. You says, okay, you know what? I don't have anything, but I don't have to feel destitute. I don't have to turn to crime. I can try to look for a job. I can try to lose some of my pride and the things that I don't want to do, I will try to do. There's a lot of instances where people are given opportunities, and we see it with a lot of our young folks. And one of the big common problems in our country, we talk about the immigration, and a lot of workers from Mexico and other areas. They do the jobs that basically the other Americans don't want to do. And why is that? What's wrong? Why do you think it's beneath you to get out in the field and pick an orange or clean someone's house or provide transportation or provide yard cleanup? When did that become such a menial job? And why is it that a person not of this country, who thinks of this country as a place where he can make himself whole, comes and does that? Why do we look down on that person? And then when they do the job, we get mad. Well, he's taking all our jobs. Well, you didn't want to do the job, so they got someone who did. So again, where's the wholeness? If you really wanted to work, this was offered to you. There's a song by Richard Marx, and I love that guy. And one of the songs is It Don't Mean Nothing. He says, when you're trying to make a living, there ain't no such thing as pride. And when you're trying to do something, you got to let your pride go. If you are trying to keep yourself together, your family together, your business together, you have to do what it takes to do that. You got to inspect the integrity of your endeavor, because if you don't, it flies apart. And now you're not accomplishing anything.
That's it. And, that really goes back to priorities and integrity. You're setting priorities is, again, a part of that. If you're a person of integrity, your word should be a priority, right? Getting it done should be the priority, not my pride. Pride comes before a fall. That's a very familiar saying, right? Pride comes before a fall. And especially when it comes to the workplace, that's very common these days. And one of the things that my father, would always tell me when I was younger and getting into the workforce was, again, I'm in southeastern Kentucky. That's where my father's family's from, and so this vernacular was common here. He'd say, when you go to work, you make them a good hand. And when you agree to take a job, a person of integrity is going to give 100%.
Right.
From the time you punch in to the time that you punch out. You shouldn't be looking for shortcuts. You shouldn't be looking for, the easy path. You should be looking to accomplish as much as you can accomplish from point A to point B. Right. Because you, as an individual, made an agreement with your employer to do this job for this wage for this amount of time.
Right.
So you need to internalize that and, hopefully check that with your moral compass and align those things. You know, what would your expectations be if you hired a person to do a job? You know, reverse the roles. If it was your money, that's something we do with our group a lot. My engineering group, my boss is famous for this. Is you know, is that how you would spend your money? You know, this is company money, but if it was your money, is this a good decision? You know, reverse those roles and kind of check yourself. You know, are you a person of integrity? And again, taking that back to the dojo, this works on both sides of the mat. As a student, I always felt like it was my responsibility to be there. You know, if I wanted to learn and I knew the expectations were we were going to train Monday, Wednesday, Friday at, you know, 7:30 to 8:30, then I needed to be there at 7:15 so I could be ready to get on the mat at 7:30, you know. And we were very fortunate that our instructor felt the same way. You know, when he's running a business and he's a teacher, the doors were open. I take as a teacher, you know, Sensei Adams was a great example. Master Adams was a great example. I don't ever recollect him missing a class. I don't ever remember him missing a class that he was scheduled to be there.
He's never sick, and he's never
class size.
Never. Yeah.
You know, regardless of class size, the intensity of the training stayed the same.
One student or 50 students.
Yeah.
He was there you knew when you walked in, when he said, I'm going to teach you this, you knew he was going to teach you that. He still does that. He says, you know, during COVID, he says, I want to find a way to get something out to my students. He did that. He figured it out. He said, because this is what I'm supposed to do. We did it through video. Then we did it outside. You know, this is a person who understands the code of integrity. He says, I've got integrity. When you talk to Master Adams, you know there's no BS there. If he says this, then this is how it is. If he's going to do this, then this is what he does. And that is how we have to be, like you say, on the mat. It is our responsibility as students to show up, but it's also our responsibilities to learn what's being taught. You know, there is no shortcuts, just like you say, on the mat. If you want to learn how to block that punch, you have got to put in the work. You're going to get taught in class. He's going to show you how to do it. Now, he's fulfilled his part. He has shown you what to do. Now, you've got to fulfill your part. You've got to practice it. You've got to go home. You've got to work that technique, visualize that technique, come up with questions, come up with scenarios. You've got to work it. So the next time you're in class, you can keep building on that. So if you don't have integrity in yourself, you don't have that discipline in yourself to say, okay, I got to respect what I'm being taught, but it's also my responsibility to learn and practice what I'm being taught. Again, it's the whole package. There's the teaching, then there's the learning. They go hand in hand. If this is lacking, then you can't learn. If the teaching is great, but the learning is lacking, then what's the point of teaching? So it goes like with anything else. Same thing like you said on the job, you know. One of the, I was having a conversation, our plant's going through a launch now. We retooled and they're having an extreme amount of difficulty. Let me just put it that way. But
I understand. I went for an equipment runoff this weekend. We're purchasing a new line. The beginnings are never perfect.
It's never perfect, but we're there, you know. Yeah. And I was talking to one of the guys, and he's a newer guy, and we were talking about the truck, and he was saying, you know, I said, one of the things you have to understand about the manufacturing world is no matter what you tell you, and they put this on every little work they said, whether it's a schedule or a plan, this is tentative and subject to change. Okay. So it could change at any moment. What can't change is your commitment to do what needed. Okay. I told him flat out, we were talking about the trucks, and everyone, this is what I never understood. People get upset at work, and the first thing is say, oh, I'll show them. I'm just not going to be here. I'll show them. I always say, how is that showing a company when you're not here? All they do is get somebody else to do your job. So now you're not here. You missed your money, and it keeps going. But, you know, we were talking, and I said, listen, there's a lot of things that you're not going to like about this place. Okay. I've been on my job 22 years. There's a lot of things that I hate about the place, but I do my best, and I do my best, not just because I'm being paid, which is the core reason, but also for me, which is the true core. I do my best because I'm proud of our product. When I see that truck roll off the line, I want to know that if someone's in that truck, I did everything I could to make sure that they are happy with the product, they're safe, you know, because A loved one could be buying this truck. You know, a friend, I could be buying this truck. I want to make sure my moral compass is such that I want to be responsible for what I'm doing. If you tell me to tighten this down, I want to tighten it the way I was instructed. I want to ensure that it's proper. I want to ensure that the integrity of that connection is met, so that when it leaves my station, I say, okay, I did my part. And that's what you have to do in every aspect of your life. You know, if you just assure that I want to make sure that what I was assigned, the task I was set, I did it to the best of my ability, you will have more successes than failure. Now, some things you do, you're always going to fail. You can't, you know, I'm listening to, I bought 50 Cent's audio book, Hustle Harder. And let me tell you, this guy, he's got a head on him. And what he says, one of the things he says is you have to swallow your L's, which is your losses. And he's right. If you do something and you try and you fail, or you try to go and you lose, you got to swallow that, absorb it, see what happened, keep on trying. You know, you've got to respect the integrity of the process, okay? Winning and losing, they're the same thing. If you keep striving, you will have more wins than lose, whether it be as in relationships or education or as a family or whatever. And the whole comes back around to, you've got to respect the integrity process of how to do something. You've got to look at, I want to get here. So how do I do that? Okay, I got to do this, then this, then this, then that. I can't do this, then that, then come back to that. You can't do that. You got to respect the integrity of that process. You got to respect the wholeness of that process. The end result will then show you that, hey, it was worth doing that. It was worth working hard. And that's something, again, that I don't see in our society. No one's respecting the process of anything. They want instant gratification. They want instant results, or they want instant solutions. Like, okay, I don't understand this, so let's just squash it.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're losing sight of that. We're losing sight, you know, we're losing sight of that wholeness. We're using that side of that unity. And it's detrimental, man. It's bad.
It's interesting how you frame that, because, and whether it's in your personal life or at work, integrity drives quality.
Yes.
You know, when you look at the definitions that we've laid out of, you know, number one, having core principles. You know, you have to have a set of core principles, and you have to be consistent with that. Mm-hmm. I work for a Japanese company. We're a Toyota group company, a tier 1 supplier, and I work with a lot of Japanese on a daily basis. And I'll be honest with you, I've been fortunate to travel back and forth to Japan several times over the last 20 years. And I'm starting to see changes in their culture that I think is very unfortunate. They're becoming more and more westernized. And honestly, I think it's not for their betterment. But we have what we call standard work, you know, which is just how you do a job. And they break it down from, you know, what you do with your right hand, what you do with your left hand. And these are the steps that you go to perform this task. And sometimes we have quality problems, and it's a result of not doing standard work. And the Japanese are befuddled. It really confuses them that someone wouldn't do that. You know, that why would you not do that? And, you know, the American culture is so different in that, you know, we're kind of elitist and think we can do everything better. Yeah. And again, the Japanese have the concept of Kaizen, but, you know, it's very formalized. You know, there's no easy way and there's no shortcuts. But you take that back to your personal life and driving quality in your personal life. If you will think of that core set of values and your moral standards, it's going to come with losses, just like in the workforce or in the work world, where you're going to have defect parts or whatever. If you lose sight of that, or in the dojo, if you're, you know, not showing up and, you know, you're not putting in the effort, you know, during the time that you're allotted, you're going to have losses. you're not going to progress as quickly or be as efficient, or, you know, those that are. In your personal life, when you start, again, going back to last week, you've got these moral values, and you start holding the people around you accountable to that, and holding yourself accountable. You're going to have losses. You're going to have less people in your circle, but the quality of people of your circle are going to elevate. And at the same time, you're going to be elevating yourself. So, I mean, you can't, to me, integrity is the bedrock, the foundation that all of this other stuff is going to build on. Without it, everything else is a very fragile structure.
Because you need a base. The base is your core. That's why, taking it back to the dojo, we learn, the first thing you learn is how to put your feet and step.
Dance.
That's the first thing you do. That stance, the step, it's the first thing when you walk in. Well, okay, it's one of the second things. You learn how to put your gi on. So, but
tie your belt.
It starts from the ground up. Sensei always says, and Master Woods always said it. It starts from the ground up. It's the ground up. When you get to as you train and your levels advance, and you get to, you know, Sensei now he's got me working with we're talking about the shifting and the weight balance and the breathing and everything, and it's funny how it's all come back to that base, that stand. So now my understanding of being grounded, it's different than it was when I first walked in. And, you know, it's, if you don't start at the bottom, you will never get to the top. If you don't build that foundation, your whole structure is going to crumble, you know? And when you mention family, and it is so true about how when you start a family, you've got to accept the fact that, okay, I'm single, I'm this and that. Now that you start a family, your priority has to shift. It has to change. You have to set up the foundation of your family, and that foundation has to be, I'm there. I want to be there. I want to help. Now, my wife she's very good at maintaining our core, because, you know, my mind's all over the place. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. The kids, they're all those, and she is very good at maintaining our core. She says, hey, we're having family dinner. Hey, all of us are sitting right here today and we're talking, okay? Hey, get down here. We're going down. We're visiting your grandma. And it brings you back, and it puts you back into that family core. It puts us back to our foundation, you know, because at the heart of the matter, if you're not strong here as a family, then you're actually weak out there. One of the things that my sons, I tell them, and I think they get it, and I think they believe it, no matter what goes on out there, you can always count on me and your mom. You know, you can always count on me, and even be more personal. I say, you count on me. I will be your true north. In order to do that, I've got to hold myself accountable. I got to have integrity and say, okay, I'm allowing them to rely on me, so I've got to make myself someone they can rely on. My word has to be my bond. You know, of course, you're not going to agree with everything I do. Some of the things I do is going to make you mad, because in my mind, okay, you don't agree with this, but to me, this is how I maintain the structure and the strength of our family, okay? But I've got to be willing to accept that. Any aspect of your life, you've got to be willing to say, like you said, you're going to lose friends. You're going to lose a lot of stuff in your circle, because you've got to hold yourself to that high standard, and you've got to hold your people around you to that standard. Because if you want to be a champion, you don't want to hang out with lazy losers, because they will infect you, you know. Now, a curious thing, I was me and the boys were watching a YouTube last night, and there's a guy I follow. His name is Major, and he's a motivational coach and physical. And this video was about facing your fears. And one of the things, and it was really curious, he says, if you're trying to lose weight, it's amazing how people around you will support your effort to be unhealthy. They're like, yeah, let's get that pizza. Let's have that beer, smoke that blunt, this and that and the other. And they're just, you know, they're not saying anything about how you're clogging your arteries, you know, destroying your heart. You know, your body's just getting, they don't say anything. But the moment you try to change that, oh, don't come, man, what do you mean you're not drinking no more? What's wrong with you? Oh, why are you exercising so much? Oh, what do you mean you're going for a walk? Why are you walking so much? They question why you're trying to change and become better. No one really questions when you're not trying to change. But the moment you try to change, a lot of times it's the ones that are closest to you that try to destroy it or try to halt it. You know, they don't respect the integrity of your process. So
Right.
if you don't respect the integrity of yourself and say, hey, this is what I've got to do, I got to bring it together and I've got to do this. If you can't build that foundation of self-strength, you know, of confidence, do that, you're not going to accomplish anything. And you've got to let go of people around it. You know, I did a video on my other video channel that I have, my rants with Leo. I did a rant about it on fake friends have to go. And I'm gonna put a shameless plug in here. Anybody listening, check out my YouTube channel, Rants with Leo. I got to do a shameless plug. But one of the things you got to do is surround yourself with a core group. And the dojo, I love that about the dojo, because no matter what's going on at work, what's going on whenever, when you come to that dojo, those people there that you've weeded out and have whatever, those few that are left with you when you started, you know that they morally, they're saying they're focused like you are. They want the same things you do. They want to become a better. They want to become stronger. And they're holding themselves to a standard, because to make black belt, you've got to hold yourself to a standard, because it is a long, hard, painful road, but
Yeah.
it's so beneficial. But each step of that pain is a lesson. Every time you get hit, that was a lesson on how not to get hit. Every time you step wrong, that was a lesson on how you need to step next time. And you take that out of the dojo and you put it into your everyday life. Okay, I made this mistake. Next time I know better. All right, I spent this on this and didn't work. Next time I'll know better. It teaches you how to, okay, I'm going to make a mistake, but I can keep moving forward, you know? And as long as you keep that center, you keep that focus, again, you respect the integrity of the process, it's going to help you grow, you'll be fine. But again, I think it's saying, and my question, how do we as a society get back to that? How do we get back to those core beliefs? How do we get back to, yeah, we're America and we're great, but we also, one of the things that made America great was that America banded together. You know, World War II, they were together.
9/11.
Korean War, they were
You know?
together.
Yeah.
Vietnam War, we blew apart. We didn't agree with it. So what did they do? They blamed the soldiers. You know,
Yeah.
it was terrible the way the Vietnam vets were treated, and to some degree still are treated. Why is that? When did we lose sight of, hey, they're soldiers, but they're still our people. Let's get together with these soldiers. Since they're fighting, let us on this end who are not fighting, let's go to our politicians and say, we're mad at you. Get them out of this war. Figure out a better way. Don't be mad at them and be mad at the soldiers. Come on. Where's the sense in that?
Well, again, I think we're talking about integrity and we're talking about core values, right? So, in number one, it's a very personal thing. So, if we as a country are going to come together like we think we ought to, or it all starts small, right? With like this thing that you and I are doing right here, right now. And what allows that to happen is we share our core values. You know, unfortunately, I'm not certain that our society as a whole shares a lot of the core values. And that's very difficult.
How do you
That's very
reinstill them?
difficult. How do you reinstill them? That goes back to accountability, right? And integrity. Again, you're going to have some losses, right? You're going to have some losses when you start holding people accountable for the set of rules that are set in place. You got to have rules. You got to have a core set of values, and there has to be accountability. You know, you mentioned the dojo again, and just going on our shared experience. Master Adams was very clear in his school, in his dojo, that he had a certain code of ethics that he expected his students to adhere to. And if you didn't, he would cut you loose. It wasn't just about the money. Now, now I run a commercial dojo, so I understand that it is a business. Right. And there is money.
And there is compromise.
Money to run a business. You know,
there's going to be compromise.
There's overhead. You got to pay rent. You got to pay insurance. You got to keep the lights on. You know, there's expense to that. However, you know, choices have to be made. So how are you going to make those choices? What's going to be the driving factor? Is the dollar going to be the driving factor, or is quality going to be the driving factor?
Right.
Every decision, I guess, you make, you can break down to three drivers: quality, cost, and time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you can never have all three of those
No.
in the same outcome. You will never have 100% of those in the same outcome. So you have to decide which is more important. If I want the best quality, it's probably going to cost more and take longer. You know, if I want it now, it may cost more and be less quality. So all of those things play a part. And when you're talking about integrity, that the quality or my values has to be in the forefront. The decisions that I make, I have to weigh those against those values. You know, if I say I'm not going to be associated with someone that is a casual user of narcotics, for example, or I'm not going to have people in my life that every Friday night, every Saturday night, their plan is, you know, be at the club at 7 and leave at 2:30. You know, I want to be the last guy out the door and count on Uber getting me home. For me, those aren't the people I want in my life, you know, because you're going to call them up and say, hey, I need you, you know, to help me Sunday, and they're going to be hungover. Or I'm going to need you Saturday, and they're going to be hungover. You know that you can't count on those people, generally speaking, to help you in times of need. You need dependable people in your life. You know, if somebody can't see the wrong in stealing, I don't need those people in my life. You know, people don't see the value in, you know, if you look down the street and say, you know, well, again, I live in southeastern Kentucky, and this isn't much different than, you know, the situations in urban areas. The fabric of the family in southeastern Kentucky and Appalachia has deteriorated greatly over the last 40 years. You know,
you say the fabric, like what do you mean?
Well,
Just like, what do you think? What's happening? What's
well, it's an interesting dichotomy, because myself, my own personal experience, having lived in the metro area and having lived here, for example, my parents both, my mom was born in South Carolina. My dad was born in Kentucky. My mom's parents came to Michigan in the mid 50s. My dad came to Michigan in the mid 60s. Everybody came looking for work, right? There wasn't a lot of work in the South. Everybody moved north. Not everybody, but those that did, right? They moved north looking for jobs in the auto industry. Their jobs were plentiful. At that time, if you were from the South and you came to the north to find a job, they loved it, because they knew you were used to hard work. You had, you know, you were going to show up and you were going to do your job, because it was survival where you came from. You know, it was just expected. You know, my dad was from a family of 7, and they grew up on a family farm. You know, they had to get up and do chores. My grandfather worked in Cincinnati, so he was gone throughout the week, and he came home on the weekends. So all the kids, 5 boys, 2 girls, they all had stuff to do before they went to school. You know, whether it was milk cows, feed the chickens, gather the eggs, cut wood. You know, they grew up in that kind of environment. They had a large garden, but, you know, when they got old enough to go out and work, you know, several of the boys, at least 3 brothers, my dad's Uncle James, my Uncle Pat, my dad, they all went to Michigan and got jobs up there. But at that time, it was just known, you know, if you were from the South, that you were a hard worker. You were just used to it. Now, that is completely the opposite. You know, there is a complete lack of integrity. We'll just use the word. There's a complete lack of integrity for how you make your living. You know, here, again, I think the government, everybody here is government subsidized. I'll just say it. It's government subsidies. And the employment situation here, although there's jobs available, most people don't want to work. You know, they're happy with existing on what the government will give them, because it is enough to exist. It's not enough to thrive, but it's enough to exist. And then they subsidize that, generally speaking, with some sort of less than legal activity, perhaps. So steal,
nice way to put it.
Sell, whatever. And, you know, again, with the family dynamic, people don't get married, right? You want to live together, because you get married, you can't get as much from the government, because the government has expectations, right? So they play the system. You need more money? Oh, you have another kid. You know, you get a raise. So that's very common, unfortunately. People might get mad around here when they see that. But, you know, and my experience, my opinion from what I've seen, that, and I think it may have been a intentional, I'll say intentional, or at least, honestly, I'm struggling for the right word, but as much as that happened.
And when you say intentional, you mean like a government intention to maybe like
pacify? I think it was a plan. Okay. I think it's a plan. I do. As much as that happened to your culture in the inner city, it's happening to my culture here now. And I think there's a greater force that's driving in that direction. But again, I don't hold them responsible, because regardless of what their intent is, we allow it to happen. You got to hold yourself responsible. We're going to go back to integrity.
You got to look at that. You got to say, like you said, they're happy with existing on the bare minimum. They're happy with existing. They're not thriving. They're existing. And like you said, correct, you hold yourself accountable. Okay, it'll be easy to say, okay, with this, I can buy some food. I can do this. I can be here. Okay, I'm good with that. Can't buy the best food, not living in the best place. But, you know, but if you in your core say, okay, at this moment, this is the best I can do. But if I go and take what I have here and use it to fuel my search for something else, then I can move up a step. So if you hold yourself accountable, you know, when we do with our families, you know, when coming up, the kids, at one point, I was working 3 jobs. You know, my wife, our son was born at 25 weeks when he was born. So
I remember when she went into labor.
Yeah.
We were at Fred's reception.
Yep. And we got out of there. Yeah. And when she had him, it was difficult for us, man. You know, he was in the hospital. He was it was a lot of work. It was a lot of time. He came home 3 months later. He came home, and she was trying to go to work, and I was working. You know, and at the time the plant was on overtime. When she got pregnant with the twins, they put her on bed rest. Okay, because they consider her a high-risk pregnancy. So now I've got her and the little one at home, and the 2 little ones growing in her. And it's like, okay, we need the money. She obviously couldn't work at that time. So fortunately, we were really on straight up overtime. I took a second job somewhere else. When the twins were born, it got to the point where we had a discussion, and we're like, look, hon, if you want to come home, because I want you home with our kids. You know, if you're just working just to pay daycare, it's not worth it. Right. So to me, the foundation of making sure that my kids had at least one parent in them, with them at all times, that fueled everything. So I worked at the plant, I worked at the glass shop, and I worked at a synagogue. I would go to the plant. I was on afternoons. I would go to the plant, get to work at 3:30. We were working 10 hours. I would get off at 2:30 the next morning. I would go home. I would go to sleep. I would wake up. I would go to the glass shop, and I worked in the shop because that's where I came from originally. So I would go in the shop, do office work, and do the glass cutting, get in there at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, work sometimes 2 or 3 days a week to about, noon or 1, come home and go to the plant. On the weekends, I would get up if we weren't working, Saturday at the plant, it was cool. But if we were working, it still didn't matter. I was afternoons. I would get up. I would go to the synagogue at 7:30. I did the minion breakfasts, prepared all the food, all that. Worked there till about noon. So if we weren't working Saturday, I'd go home and rest. If we were working Saturday, I'd get off from the synagogue, run right home, get a lunch. My wife would have my stuff ready, run right to the plant. Sunday mornings, I would get up, go to the synagogue, and do the breakfast for the men's group and everything. So I was basically working like 7 days a week. But it didn't matter because there was plenty of food on the table. Everything the kids need, we got, no problem. My wife said, she would call, you know what, we need this, this, and this. Okay. We got to do this, this, and this. Okay. We want to do this, this, and that. Okay. Because to me, the foundation of having a strong family meant that, okay, it's my job now to ensure that she has everything. She's giving life to these children, and she's doing everything she can to make them safe, secure, and happy, and find good programs, good this and good that. It's my job to make sure she has the resources to do that. And that's how we built our core on that. We came up with that. Now, as time goes by, you lose this job, the synagogue job. I let it go because they changed the thing. The glass job, it was becoming too much. I let it go. Now, we got to a point where the plant, our pay increased a bit. Overtime was just crazy. So I was able to do everything, but instead of working 3 places all the time, I was at 1 place all the time. But still, I did it because to me, I never blamed my family for having to work so much. Like I never say to the kids, I hear people say, if it wasn't for you, I could have this new car. If it wasn't for you, we could be doing this. I never can get how you can say that to your child, because you chose to bring this child into the world. I chose to bring these 3 boys into the earth with her. So it's my job. It's my responsibility as a man of integrity, as a man of accountability. It is me who has to provide so that she can provide, so that our kids can grow up and understand that, okay, mom and dad did this so we can do this, which means we need to do this to show them we get it and also to better ourselves. One of the things I always tell my boys, I don't want you to do as good as me. I want you to do better. I want to look at you and say, wow, you did that so much better. I want you to have more money. I want you to have more success. Most of all, I want you to be even happier. I want to see that you are achieving a level of success that I never dreamed of because you had a foundation that taught you how to keep going. Sadly, in my culture, a lot of Black families, there's a breakdown of the basic family structure. There's the dad's not at home for whatever reasons. A lot of unwed mothers, for whatever reason, a lot of fathers don't want to play their roles. And of course, it goes both ways. You got a lot of fathers who do want to play the role, but the mom is mad at the father, so she won't let him see the child.
And the laws are not in their favor.
The laws are not in our favor. So you're dealing with
as men.
You're dealing with all kind of crazy. And let's face it, you're dealing with racism, so you're not going to get the opportunities. You're going to be looked at different, and it's a breakdown of our culture. And I know for a fact there was a plan to do that. I know for a fact. You go back to Willie Lynch's speech, which details how to break down the African slave culture, how to break down the family unit, how to subjugate their structure. There was a plan, and the plan is working. Now, as people, we have to say, wait, stop. Okay, this is what the system has designed for me, but I need to rise above the system. I got to look at myself and say, wait a minute. Is it really, really that important that I smoke this blunt? Is it really, really that important that I do this? Do I really have to have my pants sagging? Do I really have to always be mad? You got to hold yourself accountable. You got to look at yourself and say, hey, yeah, the world is stacked against me, but that doesn't mean I have to do what they expect me to do. I have to become the lazy person they want to become so they can run ramshot over me. Just like you're saying down south, they've turned into a system of dependency. You don't have to do that. You can say, okay, you're trying to break me, but I'm going to rise above this. This river is trying to wash me, but there's always that one rock that the river has to just eventually go around. I want to be that rock, I want to maintain that foundation. A rock is the most integrity-driven thing on the planet because it may get worn down, but it's still standing strong. That foundation, at the core of that rock, it's still there. And you've got to have that because if you don't, life's going to run you over. And whether it's by design or whether it's just the way it is, it's going to run you over. If you do not have a structure to adhere to, when I get caught up with everything, you know, and bills come up because it's stuff, you know, kids and everything, there's always something happening. There's always something breaking down. There's always some supplies that needed or whatever. I just stop and say, okay, all right, I've built myself so that I took on this responsibility, so I've got to handle it, you know? So what I do is, and you can probably see him back here, I'll stop. If I'm not, you know, doing training or working out, I'll build Lego. Because to me, taking that bag, opening it up, dumping those parts out, and then putting them in order, and then assembling something, that to me shows me, okay, this is what I got to do. I got to look at this problem. I got to break it down, and I got to figure out each little step. Because if you're like me, you want something, you want it done immediately. You want it fixed immediately. You're like, no, forget this. This is the problem. I want this happen. But if you're a man of integrity, you understand that it's not going to happen that way, because that won't be the end result that I want. I've got to go here, then here, then here, then here. Now I've got the result. I respected the integrity of the process. I respected that it's a whole process that I have to go through in order to get there. And it is a shame that we've lost so much. Like we were talking last week, the teachers have no authority in the classroom anymore. Because one of the places, these are people who with your students the majority of the day. When teachers can instill in that sense of responsibility, that sense of duty, that sense of discipline, that sense of integrity in the student, and the parent is instilling it at home, now you've got functional individuals who will come up. But if you got a system where the child is not really getting the discipline at home, so when he comes into school, the place where he might could get the discipline, and the teacher is chastised trying to do it, so now the teacher is scared to do it. Now you've got a child that's going to get no discipline at home. It's not going to get any discipline in school. So of course he's going to grow up and be wild and do what he wants to do, have no sense of what he should do. We've got to come back from that. We've got to stop saying, like you said, we also talked about entitlement. We've got to stop saying, you know what, I'm going to do what I want to do because I'm entitled to. No, 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 no. You've got to look at the group. What you need to do is understand that everything you do affects your family, everything you do affects your society, everything you do affects the world as a whole. If each person can say, all right, for my part, I'm going to do this. Now, if you got one person doing right, which inspires 2 more, which inspires 5 more, before long, you've got 100 people who are doing, now let's say, when I say right, I don't mean necessarily right or legal. I just mean right by you, right by your core sense of value, right by, you know, the moral responsibility. You've got 100 people now doing right. They influence another 100. And if you keep spiraling out and out and out, now you've got a whole society that's like, okay, we are moving in the right direction because this is the direction that will benefit us all. Yeah. But if you've got some people that are, well, I want to benefit us.
Yeah, you can't put the individual ahead of the group.
Yeah, then it's not going to happen. You know, I hate the old adage, there's no I in team, but people say, yeah, but there is a me in team. Then you're not part of the team. Because the me is not a team because it needs the T and the A.
With the people around you, like we said in the beginning, right? You have to be, you can't work in opposite directions. You know, you have to maintain that moral code, like you said, and surround yourself within your circle of influence, and just geometric progression. I influence one person. Each one of those people influence one person. You know, now we're at 4 or 5. Now we're at 5. So you get geometric progression of the idea. Kind of taking that back to the dojo, and you know, we talked about Master Adams. One of the things I really appreciate, having had the opportunity to train there while training other places, one of the things he allowed me to do, and I really appreciate, was when I started competing in the sport jiu-jitsu stuff back in the 90s, he never had a problem with that. Or if, you know, any tournament we wanted to go to, you know, we just come say, hey, Sensei, you know, I'd like to travel down to this event. If it was out of state or whatever, you know, he would, you know, if he thought you were ready, you know, he was fine with you going and doing it. Because I've had him say no to, I've seen him say no to certain people and things like that. But, you know, he knew what he was teaching had integrity. He knew that he was creating quality martial artists, and that regardless of where you went, you were going to represent well.
Right.
I know people, and I've experienced martial artists and teachers that hold their people back, or at least hold them to a very tight circle, because they know that if they go out into the greater martial arts community, they're going to be exposed.
Right.
You know, their weaknesses are going to be exposed, and that's very unfortunate.
Because your students are suffering because of it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, frankly, they're not teachers with integrity. They're given a lower quality product, a false sense of security, and they're just taking money. It's a scam. It's a scam. You teach this. I'll give my teacher Dole Sieber credit for this, and forgive for what I'm about to say, but he calls it MSU karate. Just make shit up. That's what. So, you got these people out there teaching MSU karate, and it works fine if you're all just doing the same thing in the same small group. But when you get out there in the real world, sometimes that don't work out so good for you. So
Master Woods used to always tell us, Master Woods is like, that man's like a second father to me. We'd be at Davidson, and when how Davidson, I'm sorry, we were raw. It was raw. It was a different breed. We were a different breed, and he would always say, "You know what?" He says, "I don't let you guys go to tournament. I unleash you for tournaments." He said, "Because bottom line, you go to this tournament, oh, these guys are going to be there, and oh, these guys. So I don't care. I don't care who's going to be there, because I know that you guys are learning, and I'm teaching you guys. So anywhere you step into, don't matter. Oh, you coming at me with Taekwondo? I'm ready. Oh, you coming at me with this wrestling crap? I'm ready." He says, "Because I know that I'm showing you guys what you need to do to to take care of your business. It's just that simple." And you like that. A lot of times, we would let everyone. We had one guy named Tony Smith. I don't know if you remember Tony, but he would just travel everywhere, every tournament, always come back. Quietest guy, just very mild mannered. But on that mat, he was a demon. And everywhere he went, he'd come back with first place trophy. Different this classic, this tournament. Didn't matter the style. Because Master Woods said, "Now you see, Tony, everywhere you go is because you stick to the core principles of what you were taught, which are movement, which is your basic, your principles of movement, your principles of striking, and you will win." And that's what would happen. He didn't care where we went. Like you said, same thing with Sensei Adams. He doesn't care where Sensei don't care where you go, because he knows, oh no, Now, if you had not been training, or if he thought something was janky, he would tell you. Now, they're not really, he said up front, those guys aren't up front, they're a little shady. I don't want you to get hurt because you into a situation that you're not, if your technique wasn't right, they fight on it. You might want to step up your game a little bit. You need to do a little bit more work. And then he would prepare you. This is what you need to work on. Same thing with Master Woods. You need to work on this, this, and this.
Yeah.
There was no sugarcoating it. If your quick was crappy, okay, that kick, you ain't been practicing. You need to get home and practice on that bag. And because of that, because they kept to that moral code, because they respected the integrity of what they were teaching, it instilled in you to respect the integrity of what you were learning.
Exactly.
And we came up because of it. Simple as that. Yeah. Which is why you and I would try to kill each other, because we respected the integrity. I said, "Look, dude, yeah, you may think you got that, but I'm gonna show you this." And we constantly improved, because we respected the integrity of what was being taught to them, and we understood that we had to hold ourselves accountable for what was being taught. If I'm gonna step out on this mat, it's my responsibility to make sure I'm ready to step out on this mat. If I'm going to go to this job, it's my responsibility to say, okay, I read the employee manifest, I familiarize myself with the tool, so now I'm going to do the process. Now, if that process done the way instructed does not work, then it's up to the employer to say, okay, but it's up to me to learn it so I could tell them it doesn't work. You know,
Yeah.
we're going through that right now with the plan. You know, this is not working. This is why it's not working. Oh, you're right. We need to change that. If I didn't respect the process, if I was a person who just says, well, you know, yeah, okay, I'm gonna do this, yeah, okay, and never really learned how to do it, I won't be able to tell you what's wrong. And quality suffers, you know, everything suffers. So again, integrity is basically, like you said, it's the glue that kind of holds everything together. Without that integrity, everything else just sort of floats around.
Yeah. And unfortunately, as a traditional martial artist, you know, our culture has lost some integrity overall. Um, you know, especially now, like it's take for instance BJJ, right? Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. They're a 10-year black belt program. You know, in order to get a black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, you go to any school that's represented by one of the major organizations. They're gonna, well, any BJJ school, they're probably gonna try to get you to commit to a 10-year program before you get your black belt. And and you know, they kind of scoff at the traditional martial arts schools like karate and taekwondo, where you know, for you and I, it was 4.5, 5 years. You know, 4 to 5. If you trained hard, closer to 4. If you were a slacker, 5, 6. If you even lasted that long, right? But that goes back to the integrities of the teacher and what they're teaching. You know, Detroit is a strong, they have a solid martial arts community. You know, there's some great competitors, always has been and still are today. You know, some of the best fighters on the NASCA circuit today, you know, uh, Avery Plowden, you know, Richard Plowden's son, he's killing it. You know, that guy's phenomenal. And there are some strong fighters. And even back in the 90s, you know, mid 90s, when I was fighting in that circuit around Detroit, we were very fortunate that as a competitor, when we went to an event, you know, like I said, since they had certain expectations, you know, in episodes past, you know, we come in there, we had our gi a certain way, you know, our club patch. When they looked at a Southfield martial arts patch or a Detroit martial arts patch, they knew
There's a certain level of quality
if
to
they
expect.
didn't know you, they knew, you know, that hey, this person is going to perform at a certain level. It was not to be taken lightly.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew the, you know, you were mentioning the gentleman from Dexter Davison's school, Tony, but for me, as a coming in very early, you know, Troy Souls, you know, he was at Southfield when I first come there, and I remember going as a Q to events when Sensei Souls was, you know, a third dan at the time, and he would win grand in 3 events, you know, weapons, kata, and fighting.
Right.
He was just
Complete martial artist. He didn't shirk one
oh my
for
God,
the other.
yeah, he was just a machine. You know, it didn't matter. And on the mat, you know, during our training, he had very high expectations, you know, from the people that he was teaching. And you know, Master Woods was the same way. I never had the opportunity to see those guys compete. They were well beyond those years when I came to Southfield. But you know, again, that integrity of the teaching was held from generation to generation.
Yep.
You know, the quality didn't waver because the integrity didn't waver. You know,
And
so
that's important. Martial art, as you say, martial arts has suffered as a whole because of it. And another thing that really bothers me too is the how do I say it, politicalization of
yes,
martial arts
I
now.
understand that completely. Yeah,
The politics, that's it's just this school for that school, this sensei for that and it's, you know, even within our own system there's these conflicts, and
we
it's like
suffer from it
you
more
you
than
stop and
most.
you go
Yeah,
like, wow, what happened to, okay, bottom line, we're all descended from Master Shimabuku. What happened to, it's okay if you have your opinion of a core and you do this, or you have, what happens to maintaining that respect? You know, one of the things, I got a call this the other day from a Sensei Loveless, and he has Revolution Studios, and he's one of Master Adam's students, and he used to run all the tournaments. And he called. He said, he said, Sensei Gulley, I want you to because I've trained at worked at the school a little bit, especially
Yeah.
that years ago. He says, I want you to come teach with me because I think you make a good fit here. He said, I know you're training with Sensei. I want you to come help us. And he said, what really struck me, and I didn't even know how to respond. He says, one of the reasons is because I go all over the world and I meet martial artists everywhere. But you are one of the few people who I respect because you have such a high standard for yourself and such respect, and it just struck me like, well, wow, because I try to put that out. But like, since they love this man's a phenomenal martial artist, phenomenal fighter, phenomenal teacher. And as far as a business mind, his mind is like, I sit back and look at him and go like, dude, how are you thinking about this stuff? But to have someone like that, who, in my opinion, is succeeding in the martial world in terms of how he wants his business, how he wants his school and everything, tell me that I think you should be a part because I like the way your mind works. I like your, I like your moral.
That's what integrity will get you.
Yeah.
That's,
And it just made me like, wow, I felt so honored. Sensei called me the other day because he knew I was supposed to have my surgery. He called me. I was at work and he says, hey, Mr. Gulley, I hadn't heard from him. I want to see if you're okay. Did you have the surgery? And I said, they pushed it back. I went back to work. And he says, wow. He says, well, I knew I hadn't seen you and I knew that's not like you. But this is Sensei. This man, this is our grandmaster. For him to think that I'm worthy enough, that and he does that with all of his students. He checks on his students. When you move away, he's going to call you. He's going to check on you. Because the one thing he always taught us is, you're a martial artist. When you're with me, you're with me. And that's like, it's like, okay, if these two people who in my mind are success can still look back on those of us who are still trying to struggle up with it and come and say, hey, that's that integrity. These are men of honor. Master Woods, I went and visited him at the school. Master Woods, he's training, he had a few health issues, but he just tell him, he said, I'm doing what I can, Gulley. I'm getting stronger. I'm doing this and that, because he respected the integrity of the process. He knew what he needed to do and he did it. And a lot of advice, I would always go to Master Woods for advice on a lot of different stuff. And he don't sugarcoat nothing. Since Master Woods tell it like it is, whether you like it or lose. And if you don't like it, so you shouldn't have asked me.
Put that hand on the chin.
Yeah, and throw that elbow up. And he,
yeah, I've got that look.
I don't think so. And I like that. These guys, they showed me like, okay, they showed me, I wanted to emulate them. I wanted to be that martial artist that someone looks at, and say, hey, here comes Sensei Gulley. And when people around you are showing you that you've accomplished in that, it makes me want to work even harder. It makes me want to train harder. It makes me want to study more so that I can have that information, so that when I step on the mat, that, oh yeah, this is a person that's going to train. And if I ask him something, I know Sensei Gulley knows. Same thing with you, with your students. Oh yeah, Sensei Ellis. I was watching your video that I put up on YouTube with your movement drill. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, look at this man. Okay, me and Vince are the same age, and he's bouncing around like these kids because he's working this movement, And it's like, it shows me that when I see that, if Sensei Ellis tells you something, you better listen, because this is a man who has put in the work, who has put in the time, who has put in the effort, who has put in the blood, who's put in the sweat. So what he's telling you, there's an integrity to his teachings that you got to respect that. Just by watching one little 4-minute video, it'll show you. You look at some of this other crap on YouTube, you see these, or as we like to say, the McDojo teachers.
Yeah.
Please, I want to get a Big Mac with a side of kicks. Come on, that's basically what it is. And they're putting out all this garbage. And it's like, and I stop and I say, well, as a martial artist, before you get in front of someone, you got to hold yourself accountable. I don't want to teach you something that I haven't practiced 1,000 times and can tell you for a fact, yes, this has worked. Okay, I have been in situations in the street where my martial art has come into play. I have been in situations on job sites. When I was a glazer, I was in a lot of affluent neighborhoods working, and unfortunately, I was always the only dark person in a lot of areas, and I would come across a lot of conflict. There was a couple of physical altercations. I had to step up and say, hey, bam, this is not going to happen. My training, I was confident that I could go anywhere and handle that. So if I don't have that confidence, I don't think I should be teaching you. If something is not working, I cannot honestly say I would want to teach a student a substandard version of karate, take his money, and then let him go out to the world thinking false sense of confidence that he can defend himself. My moral compass will not let me do that. It's my responsibility for you to be safe. So I've got to teach you. Now, if you choose not to practice, that's on you. But our teachers, they said, I've got to make sure that what I'm teaching you works. And you've got to train. And that's that integrity that you talk about, you know, anything in life. You know, we true as an engineer. You make sure that this process is going to work, because that's an integrity.
Yeah. You know, believe it or not, we are about 90 minutes in. It's 10 o'clock.
Are you serious?
Yeah. We started this at 8:30. So I know we took some time there to do a little intro, but, you know, we're probably an hour and 20 minutes into this conversation.
But you know, the thing about this is that we can, I realized that the two of us is just like when we would fight. We would just fight and fight until they said stop. And then we look up and say, oh, we could go round and round, because fortunately our core values are the same. We come at it from two different sides, two different cultures, two different perspectives. But in the middle, we meet. And I think overall, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah. And that, you know, really today's subject, integrity is not bound by race. It's not bound by culture. It's not bound by citizenship. You know, integrity is just bound by the individual and how you hold yourself. You know, number one, your core values. Okay, anybody that's watching this or sees this, take some time and look inward and assess your core values. You know, what are those things that you want people to know you for? You know, you're going to look inward, but at the same time, think about, how do people see me? And what can I do to make sure that they see what I want them to see? You know, and again, I give Sensei, Master Adams, a lot of credit. In the years past, he was always told us, as a martial artist, the world ought to see you differently. You know, they ought to see you as something somewhat strange. You know, and you take that off the mat into the world. You know, he, again, expected us to be better citizens. He expected us to be better employees. You know, he expected us to be better parents because of the values that we learned in the dojo. You know, and for us, you know, that includes our Christian values. You know, as a Christian, the world ought to see us strange. We're to be in the world, not of the world. You know, so integrity is just that thing that we don't give it a lot of thought, unfortunately, but maybe this is a time when people can just pause and look inward, do that check. You know, what do I stand for? Am I a man of integrity, or am I a woman of integrity?
Bottom line, I'm going to respect the integrity of that lesson you just gave us, and we're going to call it. Nothing to add to that. So everyone, thank you for joining us. We hope you got something out of this. Vince, as always, it's a pleasure, man.
I think we explored some deep water today. It was a good conversation.
One question I have to ask, how is it you can get up early and your hair is perfect?
Oh, I just got a haircut, so it's like really...
Yeah, okay.
Again,
you're getting too pretty, Sensei.
I took time to prepare. I took time to prepare. Just like anything else. I know that we're going to do this at 8:30, so I'm up early. And, you know, that's just how it is. We're going to prepare. This is an event like anything else, so we're going to be ready. As martial artists, we want to put out a quality product, right? That's our expectation. So,
all right, everybody, again, thanks for joining us all, and we hope you're getting something out of this. And if you have any suggestions, people, please leave comments on our YouTube channel and post with us, or get in touch with us through your social medias, because we're looking for topics and we just want to connect and we want to provide something for everyone. So, with that being said, Sensei, have a good one.
Have a good week, sir. We'll see you.